Hey troops, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ryan and I'm a former Royal Marines Commando, a British serviceman. I spent nearly 6 years in the Royal Marines, and today we're going to be reacting to the Ukrainian soldiers are preparing for Russia to invade again. Because it's not the first time that this has happened, guys. Before we get into it, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. We do these every day and your support really does help me out. Before we get started, guys, I'm currently in between videoing and shooting for a new channel that I've got. It's called Bushcraft Commandos, and it's got an S on the end of commando because there's going to be two other Royal Marines commandos. One of them is an outdoor, is pretty much expert in outdoors, and the other guy is very, very good with the outdoor survival type thing. So we're building that channel for Bushcraft Commandos, and the first video that's going to drop is going to be absolutely immense. I think it's going to be the best footage I've ever shot and edited. So if you want to follow that, the link will be up here somewhere, and it'll definitely be in the description. Go follow that and look forward to the first video dropping very, very soon. It's going to be cool, guys. But other than that, let's get into this one.
Він положив душу не тільки за свою родину, але за всю нашу державу, де відстоював кордони нашої держави.
See, that's the brute reality of war. Doesn't matter what country you're from, war feels the same, death feels the same, losing a loved one feels the same, and there's not enough compassion in the world at this moment in time. We haven't reached that level spiritually as a world to the point of where we can say no to war in any circumstance. Life is more important. This is the reality. And it does break my heart watching things like that every time. I can relate to that. I know of servicemen and women who've died in the line of duty, and it's never ever glorious, trust me.
Viktor Kucherenko was killed at the front line of the fighting between Ukraine and separatists backed by Russia. His remains were brought back here to his village.
This is tough. This is tough.
The fighting started in 2014. Since then, over 14,000 people have been killed.
When you hear about civilians or soldiers dying, it's usually just as a statistic, but being here at this funeral really hits home the grim reality of war, and that is that behind the numbers, there are people, families and communities that are completely devastated.
She's just hit the nail on the head there. It's really easy to look at a different country and detach ourselves emotionally from death just because it's not our people. But if we look at the world holistically, it doesn't matter what race, colour, creed, skin, everything, all of that is just irrelevant. We are people, and death at war is the most horrific way to go. You know, you're striving for better, and if death comes your way whilst you're striving for that better cause, it just burns that much deeper. Because when you wake up and you realise who you're actually striving for better for, it's not normally how do I put this? People have their own causes that they fight for in these wars, and these men and women are fighting for the brothers left and right of them and the families at home. But the political cause is normally one that they're not really aligned to, and that's what I've witnessed with people who have served in the Royal Marines. They couldn't give a toss about any political causes or reasons. They're just there because they want to keep themselves safe, their friends safe, and their family safe, and nothing else. And when death comes and you've just been trying to protect your friends, it hurts. It hurts that much deeper.
по початку 23-ї години. Задзвонив
Wow.
телефон,
This is terrible.
і командир сповістив, що ваш син загинув. Прийміть наші співчуття. Він загинув як герой. Втратити найріднішу людину на війні – це страшенне горе.
These people, his family, will never get over that. It'll never, ever, ever get easier. Like I said, they've lost their son in a horrific way. My heart goes out to him, man. I have no affiliation with the Ukraine or Russia in any way, but a loss of life is loss of life. It doesn't matter where you come from, man. If we all aligned in that way across the world, we would instantly say no to war in a heartbeat.
Who do you hold responsible for the death of your son?
Уряд Росії, уряд України. Чому вони
Right, she said something very important there. She's not just blaming one side, she blames both sides. She said there, why to this day can't they find common ground? It's because, in truth, money, wealth, resources, in the government's eyes, normally come above any opinion of a human, right? They're not bothered, is the fact. Loss of life. We don't see politicians fighting on the front lines, do we? It's interesting that.
Вони до цієї пори не можуть знайти спільну мову для того, щоб примиритися. Чому наші діти повинні там помирати?
A ceasefire was declared 7 years ago, but the fighting never stopped. Now Russia appears to be threatening a full-blown military offensive, deploying more than 100,000 troops, weapons and fighter jets to the border, and demanding that Ukraine is never allowed to join NATO, a concession the alliance has ruled out.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the White House has warned of an imminent attack by Russia and has put 8,500 troops on heightened alert for a possible deployment as part of a NATO response force.
Well, I'm not being funny. 8,500 NATO response force aren't going to do nothing with 100,000 Russian troops on the border. I mean, is that really appropriate escalation to prohibit and stop them in their tracks? I don't think it is. Unless we're not getting the full gist of what's going on here, which is what I think's going on. There's a lot more to this than meets the eye.
If he invades, it hasn't happened since World War II. This is the most consequential thing that's happened in the world in terms of war and peace since World War II.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
Командир, пусть ускоряются, тут просвет.
Ukraine soldiers say they're preparing for a possible Russian offensive, all whilst continuing to fight separatists. The front line in the Luhansk region is where Viktor Kucherenko served.
We're being taken to the point where Victor was killed. We just had to run here really quickly because we're very close to where the Russian separatists are. So this is a very dangerous point.
Тільки обережно, пригибайтесь. Get down.
How far away from here are the separatists right now?
Приблизно 300 метрів. Вони можуть підходити ближче. В цей час використовують снайперський вогонь, аби вразити наших бійців.
300 meters away, these guys are fighting pretty much, you know, it could be hand to hand very, very soon. I really hope this whole situation de-escalates, not just for the Ukraine or Russia, but everyone else involved in NATO as well. This is a war that I always used to explain this when I was in the Marines. It's one thing fighting a militia in Afghanistan. It's one thing fighting a demoralized military who don't really have the experience and the willpower to fight like the Iraqis. They surrendered pretty soon on when we invaded alongside America. It's one thing fighting those individuals who don't like, you know, the Mujahideen, the Taliban, they didn't have access to air support and all of these things, heavy artillery and stuff, and modern day tactics. And it's one thing fighting them, but if you start fighting against prepared, organized military groups, a lot of death occurs, a lot of death on both sides. It's just carnage. That's a war you don't want to get involved in, and anyone in the military will know exactly where I'm coming from. Any guys that have served will tell you that, you know, them are the wars that you want to stay well clear of. It'll just be utter destruction.
Deputy Commander Timur Stutsky was on the front line the day Kucherenko was killed.
Це був звичайний день, такий, який от нині. Здебільшого було тихо, як це завжди відбувається. Спочатку кулемет почав працювати. В цей час під прикриттям кулеметного вогню спрацював снайпер. Ну і певно, що Віктор отримав поранення несумісне з життям.
Terrible.
Він був відповідальним солдатом, доброю, компанійською людиною. Знімав різні там відеоролики для себе.
Wow.
Ну, це було його хобі.
Can you explain to people who don't understand what it's like?
He's a similar character to me. He likes to make videos and stuff. He's pretty much an amateur content creator, and his life's been taken, and no one really knows about it other than people who watch this. And it's easy to detach ourselves from individual death. It's important not to.
To lose someone at war?
В цілому зрозуміло, що ми якби люди військові і повинні це сприймати менш емоційно. Ну, для мене особисто ці втрати дуже тяжкі.
In 2014, when the conflict first started, Ukraine found it very difficult to defend itself against Russia and its military capabilities. How have things changed since then?
Сьогодні стан справ кращий набагато. В принципі, солдат не думає про те, де йому взяти бронезахист або шолом.
Do you think you have enough weapons to be able to take Russia on, or is there anything that you think you need more of?
Nah.
Це певно, що протитанкові керовані-ракетні комплекси «Джавелін» – це та зброя, в принципі, яку дуже сильно противник, примітивно.
That's a weapon system that anyone would be afraid of, because the devastation, the accuracy that they can bestow within a couple of seconds. They can get a lot of things off the battlefield in a very quick period of time. So I can understand why they'd be scared of the Javelin. Very powerful, versatile bit of equipment that can be utilized with a single soldier in most cases.
Кажучи, боїться.
Ukraine's ground troops are better equipped and better trained than they were in 2014. But Russia's air force and navy is still much bigger and far more advanced.
And that's where they come unstuck. Air force alone is enough to stop a military in their tracks. These guys are just there for... They're there for show, if anything. And yeah, they'll stop a few guys coming across, but if Russia wants to, with the numbers, the manpower, the size, the velocity, the momentum that they could bring, they'll roll right over that position in a heartbeat. That's what I think. What do you think?
That's why Ukraine continues to push Western countries for sanctions on Russia and for weapons, like these Javelin missiles sent by the United States. But not all NATO members are on board.
We're being taken to a secret location in the east where Ukrainian forces are training using Javelin missiles. These missiles have actually been moved closer to the front line so that in the event that there is a Russian offensive, they'll be able to deploy them very quickly.
Ви тільки одночасно виходите, двері відкривайте, виходите, як беременні таракани.
These anti-tank missiles are primarily used to hit and destroy armoured vehicles, and the reason why countries like Germany are so against NATO providing lethal weapons like these is because it could be seen as an act of provocation by Russia.
Yeah, I get the provocation, but you can't say nothing when Russia's got 100,000 troops on the border. It's sensible defense of an area. So if they can take it how they want, you know, it's another man protecting himself and his land. It's as simple as that.
How important are weapons like these for your army to be able to repel a Russian attack?
Протитанкові системи Джевелін являються досить потужною зброєю. Доповнюють самі систему протитанкової оборони, яка створена зараз в операції Об'єднаних Сил. Третій доповідь про готовність. Зазначені підрозділи ми проводимо приблизно 3-4 рази в тиждень. Солдати являються повністю підготовлені до надання відсічі збройної агресії. Ми на війні.
Yet in an effort to keep the nation and economy calm, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has played down the threat of a military escalation.
Сьогодні ми не бачимо більшої ескалації, ніж
Right, so maybe someone who's from the Ukraine or anyone who's quite apt with the situation over there can explain in the comments why President Zelenskyy is playing it down. What's his intentions for that? Is it to not worry the country as much? I think it could be something about that. They don't want to worry the country as much as they don't want to set them into a level of panic, do they really? But I don't know. Someone else comment, let me know.
ніж вона була раніше. Так, збільшилась кількість військових, але зараз ситуація, я не вважаю, більш напруженою, ніж вона була тоді у пік.
His Minister for Foreign Affairs, Dmytro Kuleba, is standing by that message.
President Zelenskyy says that the threat level currently remains the same as it has done previously, and that hasn't increased. Do you agree with that?
We do not underestimate the level of threat, but we've been fighting this war since 2014, and we understand that anything can happen at any moment.
But we're hearing very, very different things from the United States. It sounds like two different messages. Do you understand that that could be confusing to people who are currently monitoring the situation?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly will be confusing for anyone to listen to two different sides of a story from two superpowers effectively saying opposite things. It's like, well, what the hell do we believe? I feel sorry for the people of the Ukraine in this whole matter. They're living in a constant state of terror, heightened terror, and it ain't going away. They've got the overriding imposition of the fact that Russia could invade at any time, which is true because there's 100,000 troops across the border. And even if that didn't happen, they're going to live with the fear of that happening for a long, long time. What a horrible situation it must be in for anyone in that situation, man. I feel for the Ukrainians.
We are on the same page with the United States when it comes to the assessment of the threat. But while President Putin hasn't moved any additional Russian soldier or Russian tank into Ukraine, we already suffer economically and become weaker because of the panic spread in the society. Therefore, markets and people should understand one thing, that Ukraine and its partners are united in deterring this and in preventing the worst case scenario. Because we all have to remain strong. We shouldn't allow President Putin to get what he wants without even crossing the red line.
Do you feel you are supported sufficiently by your Western allies?
It would be an exaggeration to put all allies under one brand, because every support differs. The United States have been extremely helpful in providing Ukraine with necessary military support, in mobilizing some members of the European Union. Some countries are not doing what they could because of the lack of political will.
Who are they?
Let me remain diplomat here, but we are working.
Have you ever met?
I wonder who he's on about in that respect. It's got to be countries who are bordering the Ukraine and supporting Russia. But we're talking about China here? I mean, they're certainly not going to help the situation, are they, with their relations? I don't know. This is a tricky one because at the same point, he doesn't want to say anything that's too obvious. But, there will be people who are not supporting them, but he can't say it because it'll affect them even more for calling them out. Very, very tricky situation. The only true victims I see in this, honestly, are the Ukrainians, really, because what can they do? What can they possibly do in this situation? They can't do anything by themselves. They do need support.
Met with President Putin before?
No.
You've never spoken to
I
him?
have never seen him.
If you could speak to him, what would you say to him?
Mind your own business. Take care of your own people.
Wow.
If he concentrates on the welfare and the future of Russia, instead of concentrating on spending billions on waging wars and cyber attacks and posing military threat to different countries around the globe, Russia would have been a different place, a much better place to live. And
Wow.
we would have had less a headache.
Wow.
So far, the United States and NATO have rejected the possibility of sending ground troops to support Ukrainian soldiers. Stetsky and his
And the thing is, that can change in a heartbeat. It just depends on the escalation process, guys, and how willing others are prepared to go in this fight against the... I don't even know. What is this a fight against? I don't know, man. In truth, do I think this is going to escalate to war? No, but I think that's just because I don't want it to go that way. Has it got the potential to? I think it's got the potential to set off World War III, if I'm honest with you. That's just me being truthful, speaking my mind. This could be the start of a World War III.
battalion will continue to defend eastern Ukraine, but he says that not everyone here might want to be defended.
Well,
Do you believe that you have the support of the civilians who live in eastern Ukraine, all of them? Or do you think some of them might prefer to be under the control of Russia?
Людей, які підтримують те, що ми робимо, Збройні Сили України в цілому, в цій боротьбі, в цій війні, саме на сході України, не так багато. Тут люди вважали росіян своїми братами, тому місцеве населення може ходити там, десь посміхатись, допомагають, працюють на ту сторону, передають певну інформацію, коригують вогонь артилерійський.
Do you think that there could ever be a diplomatic solution to stop this war?
That question, whenever it gets asked, here's my take on it. Yes, there is always a diplomatic solution. It's whether or not people politically want to accept that whole occurrence to... It's got a... Political will, that's what it comes down to. Can it be solved diplomatically? Yes. Do they want it to be solved diplomatically? Most of the time, the answer is no. Of course they can solve it diplomatically. Sit down, sort out your differences. Don't sort out your differences. Still don't go to war. Just because you don't sort out your indifferences doesn't mean to say you have to fight. It's like, come on, man. Like, you get into an argument on the street with someone you don't know. You don't settle your indifferences. Does that mean you have to fight still? Just walk away. Have those indifferences still. You don't need to fight. Well, actually, you know what? I've still got a problem with you. I'm going to kill you anyway. That's the words of psychopaths. That's the act of a psychopath. You can still have indifferences and not get on and just crack on doing your own thing anyway. Why does it always have to end up with innocent men fighting each other to the death a lot of the time? I hate war, honestly.
може обмежити їх від відкритої війни, відкритої агресії. Але в цілому, щоб закінчити цю війну, необхідна зміна політичного керівництва Російської Федерації.
Political leadership, that's what it comes down to. You know, I'm done with that video, actually, guys. Done with that. Because the answers are simple for me. You don't need to be a politician. You don't need to be an intellectual person. You know, I'm not the smartest person on the planet, but I know one thing's for sure. Soldiers, and I've been one, I've been a Royal Marines commando. Most of the time we get used for the shit work that government doesn't want to get involved in themselves. And I'm saying that from the heart. All right, there's plenty of lads died serving their country for what? For what? For some government to have an indifference or something that they could have sorted out diplomatically. We know they can sort things out diplomatically. They don't want to. That's the problem. We've got countries around the world who don't want to sort out the problems because of filthy greed, stupid idiots in power thinking that they're the biggest thing since sliced bread. And they're not. They're not. You know? And that's what boils my blood. We've got idiots at the top who think they know better. Let's send in the troops. Send in the troops. Send yourself in first. If you're not prepared to walk the line yourself, then don't send our boys in. Simple as that.